Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report, and we've got a bunch of really interesting stories here. It'll kind of open up, as I say, I have my journalistic can of worms automatic can opener ready, and we're ready for your questions, too, on any topic, and I like to be in the batter cage, and also make you in the batter cage, too, because you just need to tell our board op, Randy, your series of questions and specific statements. I do screen all calls because I want them to be interested and topically related to what we're talking about. One of the articles I posted up, and I posted up a little news cluster today on two major topics. The first one is on Ebola, and a lot of different stories here, and scary stories. One of the titles of the top article here is, what will it mean if the potential Ebola victim in New York City actually has the virus? And, of course, just to go down through the list, we know it's all not going to be very good. A number of cases and deaths is increasing pretty dramatically since April. The first thing is service stations will begin to run out of fuel. Manufacturers using just-in-time manufacturing will stop developing you'll get component shortages. U.S. mail and other package delivery will cease. Within 1 day, food shortages will begin to develop. That's after the first 24 hours, by the way. Automobile fuel availability and delivery will dwindle, and at the pumps, longer lines. Without manufacturing components, trucks for product delivery, assembly lines will shut down, putting thousands out of work within 2 to 3 days. Food shortages will escalate, especially in the face of hoarding and consumer panic. Supplies of essentials such as bottled water, powdered milk, and canned meat at major retailers will disappear. ATMs will run out of cash. Service stations will completely run out of fuel for autos. We're talking about this within a few days. Within a week, automobile travel will cease due to the lack of fuel. Without autos and buses, many people will not be able to get to work, shop for groceries, or access medical care. Hospitals will begin to exhaust oxygen supplies. Within 2 weeks, the nation's clean water supply will begin to run dry. Within 4 weeks, the nation will exhaust its clean water supply, and water will be safe for drinking only after boiling. As a result of gastrointestinal illnesses will increase, further taxing the already weakened healthcare system. A resulting gastrointestinal illness will increase, further taxing. And then the timeline presents only the primary effects of a freeze on truck travel. Secondary effects will be considered, as well as the inability to maintain telecommunications, reduced law enforcement, increased crime, increased illness and injury, higher death rates alike, and civil unrest. Now, that's Ebola, as I mentioned earlier in the program, and a lot of people panicking over this. What they need to do is start what I call daily antipathogenic protection, which is to take daily Alamax or Alamad, or Allicin, which is more powerful than the Alamad in terms of 200 milligrams, the same molecule basically, but you get more for less buck, in other words, less dollars. Nutridyne, our most powerful antipathogenic, and the Silver 100. Don't try to make your own silver. This is hundreds of times stronger than any silver you'll make. And have your NIOSH N95 masks and defense wipes and NutriDefense to boost your immune system, because disasters are coming. The Ebola one is just an airplane flight away, and it's not easily spread. I mean, unless someone literally coughs and vomits on you, you're not going to get the virus, so a lot of health professionals are exposed, and missionary workers are in direct contact and have inadequate gloves, reverse protection supplies, etc. But it will kill a lot of people because of public health policies, and I want to run through these so people have questions about what I would recommend the governments do, so you realize just how deficient they are, because I worked with the FBI and CDC in the late 90s. I had Reserve Admiral Hughes because I have a background in infectious disease and pandemics. Worked with Dr. Robert Brown when I did my work on bacteriology back in the early 70s, so I can tell you he worked on bioweapon projects and passed some of his knowledge to me as to what was going on. So we used that in Operation Top Off, Dark Winter, and others to realize how abjectly incompetent we are at protecting the public. The first thing we need to do is anybody traveling from a country of origin, not just directly from a flight from these countries, but from a country of origin, within the previous 30 days must be quarantined if they arrive in our country for at least 3.5 weeks. Number 2, everyone should have a serum drawn every week. Number 3, they should be monitored, whether they're in a quarantine facility where they can't maintain contact with anyone else. These are going to be a deal. You may have to take over, an entire apartment complex or a hotel in order to keep these people from being exposed to the public. The real danger with Ebola is if they're working in what we call rings of danger. First ring of danger is health professionals and missionaries are in direct contact with these people supplying food and other material. The second are truckers or other people that are bringing things in up, because the virus is very persistent. Someone can shed the virus for 3 weeks, which means the 4-day previous incubation period now is as long as 3 weeks, so people can be spreading the virus long before they get violently ill themselves with vomiting and diarrhea and bloody diarrhea. So that makes it particularly dangerous. Now, Ebola is only a tiny fraction, even though it's 90% case fatality, as dangerous as, say, a new emergent superflu, whether it's H5N1, H7N9, H1N1, or one of these other H combinations. If they have all 5 receptor binding genes to actually attach to the human cells, if they have specific ability to operate at the temperature of the human nasopharyngeal pathways or deep lungs, if they have the capacity to cause a cytokine storm, which is what kills you, causes massive release of cytokines and complement factors, etc., that literally can dissolve organs, like literally dissolve your blood vessels and destroy your kidneys and your brain. And you can stop cytokine storms with our Power C Plus and full vitamin K2. You can kill all Ebola with Nutrimedical, Allison Med, and Silver 100. And you can boost your immune system with our immune stimulants such as NutriImmune, Immunomax, Ageless, and of course the big gun, NutriDefense, which I designed, which has very powerful factors to protect your immune system. So there's no need with NIOSH N95 masks and defense wipes that'll kill all capsulated RNA and DNA viruses. Why people need to be worried, and they should start stockpiling them now, because Ebola is a test. What people need to understand is that if simple policies were put in place to stop Ebola from spreading, including supplying these countries with adequate materials to maintain health professionals and other people direct contact, that they don't leave the country and come back to France or Germany or Canada, and that they don't spread it back when they come back through commercial airliners. If we need to, should send over emergency airliners to bring these people back to health facilities and then get them care. We also don't want to experiment on them with experimental tobacco-laced, genetically engineered, if you want to call it sera. I personally think the most important thing is to kill a virus in situ, which we have already with Nutrimedical, Allison Med, and Silver 100. The idea of creating a anti-sera using genetic engineering is really scary to me, because they have no idea how this is going to affect the health of people that they inject, these genetically modified molecules. We see this similarly with the vaccines against the sexually transmitted viruses that can cause we call the wart virus, or corona, or other viruses that can cause cervical cancer, that in fact it causes immune system failure, autoimmunity, and other problems that weren't anticipated by genetically engineering to make your cells create the antigen or the proteins to make your body attack the pathogen, the virus, the papillomavirus, the human papillomavirus vaccine, Gardasil. So I posted that article up, and I want people to kind of, if they have any questions about it. We also see in our interesting articles, I have great listeners that send me all kinds of interesting links, some links to other broadcasters here in the network. We have an article on Alex Jones' website, Infowars.com, by Paul Joseph Watson, talking about agricare as a Fed shutting down the seed library in Pennsylvania. What they should be aware of is that the government doesn't want you to have heritage seeds. They actually have made it public that if you have more than 2 weeks of food or other material stored, you're already considered, quote, a terrorist. You're on the watch list for Homeland Security and for FEMA. And they can, quote, seize it based on Patriot Act 1, which is federal executive orders, which means we're under martial law, and we have been since 1933. They may put the sham out there, you have elected congressmen and senators, but we actually have presidential order, which is a form of martial law under corporate direction. That's the facts. I mean, as ugly as it is, that's what it is. Now, we can not operate in that. We can abrogate and destroy that. We can move forward. We also have an interesting article from Sask Power, which is Saskatchewan Power, ordered to remove all 105,000 smart meters in the province because they induced fires. And we're going to talk about that when we come back. And also we have a story about a Thai mother and her little Down syndrome baby that was abandoned by a couple in Australia. Welcome back, and some of the other stories are pretty remarkable that I've got posted up in the news. And in fact, you'll see that article that is kind of a short version of the article on Fukushima Daiichi. It's posted up in today's reports. That's Wednesday, August the 6th. And if you look at the news items and look at news and top stories, just check out the news and top stories for today. And I have one of the top articles is an Australian couple abandons Down syndrome baby from Thai surrogate. Now, what they did is they hired this Thai lady, 21 years of age. She had two babies. She had twins. One of the babies was normal, and the other one was a Down syndrome little boy that had a heart defect. And they abandoned this child. How obscene is that? They abandoned the twin that had Down syndrome. But, this is a natural thing coming out of countries that are what I call countries of vomit, like Australia and Canada, that think it's perfectly fine not only to force and harass parents and doctors that they are not good physicians or good parents unless they do Down syndrome testing of genetic testing, which they can do, by the way, with a blood sample of the mother now. They used to have to do dangerous amniocentesis for one child in 100 to 1 in 200, and in fact, the lady who's a teacher taking our daughter out who has Down syndrome at 21, she was told her child was going to have Down syndrome, and she said, I don't believe it, doesn't matter, I'll have her anyway. And when she was delivered, she was perfectly normal. So a lot of children have a false positive test for Down syndrome, even with amniocentesis or genetic testing, and they're aborted. Now, these vomit countries, and that's what I want to call them, that believe that wherever the genetic defect, if a child's going to die, we're not going to interfere with their death. And many genetic defects like trisomy 13 and 18 are lethal, except for, I think, one previous candidate for the U.S. presidency, their child was trisomy 18, and the child lived to be 4 years of age. And to be honest with you, they're a blessing to a family that give you an idea of what it's like to be a human being with a major defect. It's probably going to result in premature death, but it also changes your heart. It changes what you identify, what it is to be a human being, because until we reach what we call Ray Kurzweil singularity and extend human lifespan, I'm not talking about turning into a robot, until we achieve the what I call the spiritual level that allows to have that kind of biology, and we can eliminate illness and turn off Down syndrome genes and so on and make people healthy, and turn off genes that cause heart disease and dementia and other problems, I think it's disgusting for us to think that we can just kind of throw human beings away, just like we throw nations away, corporations away, people away, credit away, so that people can never develop their little background business from their garage or their home or their small business in their community. And it's not a wonder that we create balkanism by terrorizing places like Guatemala by sending in CIA to kill native Guatemalan males, so their women try to flee the nation after they hear radio reports that we are the affiliates of the Democratic Party put on the news, that if you go to America, you're not going to be refused, even if your 13-year-old son wearing MS-13 tags, because if he doesn't belong to a gang, they'll probably kill him. And that's what we've done in America. We've created this kind of horror everywhere. So the very fact that we have now this Australian couple abandons their Down syndrome child is a good example of the insanity that's going on. And when you open up this article, you'll see a lot more there. You're going to actually see the full list of several things. I also have a collection of articles about Ebola. And what people should start identifying is that what you're getting on the snooze, and that's what I call the regular news, you don't get really news at all. They spin you so they can manipulate you, and then they tell you things like the director of the International Monetary Fund says they should depopulate the Imperial Valley of California. We talked about this in hour number 1. This is not only not rational, it's obscene. Just like the obscenity of killing a Down syndrome child or saying, well, how can this happen? And there's a lot of Canadians that have the nerve to actually talk about this. And the article I first saw was in CBC News World, and it says the Thai mother says she can't afford to take care of her baby left behind. Well, we'll be sending her some money. We'll be trying to help this little baby. But this is a good example of the genetically engineered world of the future, where I'm sure right now in northern Japan, the Japanese weird government, because they're very much into genetic engineering, they're telling parents that now are sterile or terrified to have a child, don't worry, just submit your gametes and we'll do polar body exclusion to make sure if you do have a Japanese baby or girl or boy, we'll genetically engineer to be super Japanese, superhuman, and that they don't worry if they survive birth, which are the tender moments that radiation will definitely kill their genetic and ontogeny of their organ systems, that they'll be far superior to the average Japanese, and you have to think of this as a blessing of Fukushima rather than a curse. which, of course, the crazy Abe government, being part of the Shinrikyo cult, wants to push. This is Satanism. This is a lie. And I want to stand toe-to-toe to anybody who thinks that when I take a stand on these or other issues, whether or not it's Agenda 21 or geoengineering the climate, I would love to go toe-to-toe with you on air. Please come into my intellectual cage like Spider-Man, because it will be unpleasant and I will leave a mark. And I won't be pleasant and nice about it. I'll be a nice person to you, but I won't be a nice person to your stupidity or your arrogance if you think you take an alternative viewpoint when, believe me, some of the things that I've been through, I don't want to talk about because they're so ugly, or things I know. But what you need to know is the fact that this consequence, when I've talked for now 30 years against abortion, this idea of a Thai baby being abandoned is exactly what you get when, and I remember the geneticist calling me up as early as 6:30 in the morning and 11 at night, and I'm a doctor back in Nova Scotia, and when my little daughter, Kelsey Maria Deagle, was born, I was first approached by the female obstetrician gynecologist who was looking at the ultrasound, and I was one of the first doctors in the world trained in ultrasound in medical school 40 years ago. And she said, well, you obviously should consider abortion. I'm thinking, are you kidding? We're pro-life. We're Christian. And she was like aghast. So she sicked the Sabbatean Jewish geneticist on our backs to call and harass me and try to start browbeating me, saying I was in denial, and who did I think I was as a doctor? Why am I doing this? And I had actually physically threatened this maniac and tell him that he needs to get down on his knees and pray to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that if he called or harassed me any more times early in the morning, literally waking me up at 6 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night, that he won't be calling anybody else. And we need to start getting our backs in the air as Christians and saying, you know what, we're not going to tolerate our governments doing things that are horrendous. We're not going to talk about dialogue thinking it's an okay thing to think that it's okay to abandon these babies. Or the alternative is we got to set new regulations. New regulations, right? This Winnipeg couple, for example, they say they want this Winnipeg couple wants surrogacy laws changed. And she says, I feel sorry for the boy. It was like this. It was like this is the adult's fault, and who is he to have to endure something like this? This, even though it is not his fault. Why does he have to be abandoned while the other baby has it easy? I'll feel sorry for him. The fact is, the parents don't see the end from the beginning. This is what it is in the Bible. We as Christians should always see the end from the beginning. Always have our clear eyes on the Most High God. Always understand things scientifically and technically, without lies, without distortions. And we know exactly where it goes when you do genetic engineering and surrogacy, exactly what's going to happen. This is an example of broken humanity, a broken chain of biological identity, and abandonment of children because they have birth defects. Pretty ugly. Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report. Let's switch gears for a moment until we see if we have callers that want to touch another topic. I want to go back and talk about some of the amazing NutriMed approaches to protection. Firstly, for Ebola, I recommend our first-line defense kit, which includes Nutridyne, Nutritrala, and NutriDefense, the NIOSH N95 masks, and defense wipes, which of course will kill all encapsulated viruses. You can augment that with Alamax, Alamed, or Allicin-Med, which is the best price for value. The Silver 100 spray, which you can have the drops, the nasal spray, and the air spray, and you can make an aerosol. I strongly recommend that people start taking things like NutriDefense and Nutridyne and protection, especially if they go to an international airport right now. I think that people may think they look stupid if they go to an airport, but the fact is that no one's going to tell you that that person went through an alternate airport in Europe, and then they traveled from Sierra Leone or one of these other countries with Ebola. So there is a risk there. And if those people get violently sick in the airport, you are at risk of getting a serious infection. And again, the risk is a fraction, a tiny fraction of the risk that's going to happen if you're exposed to, say, a superflu that's coming. That'll be hundreds of times more easy to spread. The next thing is talking about Nigeria rushes to get isolation tents for Ebola. They don't have all the proper equipment. These countries don't have it. We need to have a way of actually preparing people to have the right equipment in these countries by having funds set up I'm not talking about I'm talking about something like the Salvation Army, not Red Cross. Please don't get involved with the Red Cross, the United Nations. It's really important for people to understand that. And the other thing I'd like to make a strong statement for is that get away from the toxic docs, for God's sake. And that may mean that you need to go on a fast, may mean to do a exercise program, may mean you switch your budget from that extra vacation or motorcycle to taking more supplements. It may mean you need to change the kind of food you're eating and treat your body like a fine-tuned engine instead of a hopper, where you can pour any food in and expect your body to be healthy in 6 months, a year, 10 years, and not fall apart. And that's important to understand what's going on in terms of your health. When we look at the body's nutraceuticals needs, we have lots of technology now, and I want to go over some of the various things we can do. First off, if you are a customer or not, you can email me, anybody, and I'll give you some basic advice to start with. If you send me a summary of your wellness and medical history, you could send medical tests, x-rays, CT scans, MRI scans, blood tests, genetics, anything, and I don't charge a cent. I'll give you very basic 1, 2, 3, what I call core recommendations. And then if you want to do testing, I can recommend a kind of conventional advanced testing, imaging test that your doctor can do, that you can get covered by your insurance. Also advanced testing where you get a QRMA machine, do it at home. Or if you want to do functional medicine testing, I can tell you what lab tests can be ordered by yourself through labtestingdirect.com, which will cover pretty well all the different types of tests you're going to need to do to find out are you on the right track. I prefer the QRMA first and the history because it's much more reproducible, it's far less expensive, because even when you do a lab testing direct test, which is, you're going to save between 68 and 72% on the cost of the test, because I don't charge a cent, and you're not paying through a professional, and you don't have doctor visits. What you do is you just order the test yourself, get the results, and it tells you simply what's out of balance. Do you have organic acid problems, gene problems? Do you have specific lipid problems, free radicals, oxidative markers indicate heart disease? Even measures everything from blood insulin to all kinds of markers, reverse T3, everything. I mean, it's amazing. So you don't need to go blindly. And as I say, you fine-tune the engine by changing your lifestyle, diet, nutrition. As I mentioned in the last hour, vitamin VX, which is vibrational exercise, vitamin IX, infrared and other detoxification like lumen photon, somopulse. And don't think that your doctor has all the answers. It's like the firefighter I mentioned. We were talking to John Bartlett from Barricade Fire Gel, and he mentioned, there are elements within even the fire departments around the country that don't want this or other technology that will, quote, ruin their business. Same with the medical community. They want to do, for example, orthopedic surgeons do total hip and knee replacements. Well, if you're to take supplements and add 5 or 10 years before that person's going to need a total knee or hip, you're going to reduce the total number or volume per year, and you've got a glut of surgeons waiting, and just in a sense, just waiting to pack you off on a gurney to their operating room and change your joints. Just like there's lots of bypass surgeons more than happy to say that we don't need to change the fats in fryers around the fast food restaurants around the country because it's frying people's oxidized cholesterol, which is the only kind of cholesterol that gets under your artery walls. And it's going to cause heart disease even if you're ideal weight. So your VLDL cholesterol is going to go through the ceiling. Your oxidized cholesterol, which you can actually measure antibodies against 9-nornyl hydroxycholesterol. And these tests can be done. I mean, I've been doing them for years. So people say, oh, you can dispute that. No, you can't, actually. And I'll give you the lab test. You can actually do it yourself. So when we start off, I tell people it's good to actually get a real good wellness history. And I'm putting together kind of a very simple template, so people will, not leave something out, but also not go ramble with pages and pages of stuff that's not going to help me to focus on figuring out what nutraceuticals. And I don't recommend any drugs. What I do is I recommend lifestyle, diet, nutrition, and even fasting, detoxification. A good story, and I mentioned this in Prevention Magazine, was Ray Kurzweil's story, where basically his nutraceutical, we're not talking about his transhumanism, he was able to turn himself back from being a diabetic at 35 and now 66. He's healthy, fit, does 30 to 60 minutes of exercise a day, takes tons of supplements, eats moderate amounts and portion control of chicken and fish and tons of vegetables. And his use turned on the right of his genetic heritage, so he's healthy and not heading toward dementia, heart disease, or polypharmacy. In other words, the word MD doesn't just stand for Mordo and Magnificent Deity, it stands for multi-drug. And that's not good. It's a quick, dirty way to kind of treat people that they don't have to change their lifestyle, diet, or the food manufacturers continue to put toxic food out that kills people. And it's a slow death, but it is death. So let's start off with the top. The first thing is I tell people very commonly you have adrenal and thyroid. Adrenal support and mitothyroid, you need to take Nutriodine. You may need to take pregnenolone and DHEA. Female, 25 milligrams of DHEA, and male, 50, or 2 tablets, and 100 milligrams of pregnenolone. You can identify your levels of saliva at Genova Metametrics, which is one of the labs through labtestingdirect.com. Then we look at our drinks. Ageless Life Support, Ageless Energize, which has chlorogenic acid to burn off fat. It has all the components of the Vitamin Mineral Max Minerals Plus it has digestive enzymes, probiotics, the SGS, sulforaphane glycosylate, to repair your DNA or cause cells that are precancerous to commit cell apoptosis. We've got things like acetylcarnitine and D-ribose. So if you have a decrease in energy level, chronic fatigue syndrome, myopathies, myofascial pain syndrome, the first thing to think of is CoQ10, the IBS and mitocarnitine, mitochondrial catalyst, acetylcarnitine, and of course D-ribose, which goes directly to form ATP. And of course, if you're going to take these things, you need to take adequate antioxidants because you're revving up the engine. So you want to be taking Cell Detox, Glutathione, Nutritrala, and Regenerex. And of course, fatty acids and antioxidants like Omega Supreme Krill, NutriDefense, which is the most powerful antioxidant, the anhydrous catechin, and NutriComplete. Then we look at other nutraceuticals such as our Allerblock Allergon. If you have seasonal allergies, you don't need to have them at all. If you're using nasal sprays of silver, inhalation of silver 100, and you take Allerblock and Allergon, your asthma and your allergies will just simply go away because you're killing off the opportunistic bacteria and viruses like rhinovirus subclass 3 that grows in the airways very commonly in asthma, and there's other opportunistic mycobacteria and other fungi. So there's no need to suffer. If you have a health problem, approach it naturally and metabolically. We call functional medicine, which is not alternative, it's not complementary, it is the medicine of the 21st century. And you can combine natural medicine with surgery, with intensive care, with life extension and stem cell therapy and get real advances. As I weave the baskets of your wellness pathway with the wonderful garment of Nutrimeds, and by the way, there's no comparison between our Nutrimeds and other products. I'll give you just a rundown. Our Carbo Block both is an alpha-glucosidase and an amylase blocker. So it blocks carbohydrates and it blocks the glucosidase. So it prevents you from absorbing carbohydrates and even absorbing and breaking down the sugar. We have our Cell Defense. It's the most absorbed, highest potency form of curcumin. Probably the single most important herbal in the world is curcumin. But you have to get delivered to the tissue. So Cell Defense is the best delivery with BioPerine black pepper extract. And then our liposomal for, say, sore joints or inflammation of skin, sunburn, or sun protection. Our curcumin cream is amazing. It's liposomal. It will stop your joints from hurting, your hands, your knees. It'll also turn off sunburn. Then we look at Cell Detox Glutathione. This is not like just giving people, say, whey protein or something from some other product. I don't even want to mention some of the names. This is the glutathione, okay? When you talk about oral chelation, you want oral chelation because it's a lot less violent on the body. IV chelation will work, but you better have really good doctors because if they don't watch you closely and you've had underlying kidney disease or other problems, you're going to go into kidney failure as one possibility. You'll also get extreme electrolyte imbalances can cause cardiac arrhythmias or extreme muscle weakness. So you want Killer Max, and you want to make sure you're taking your minerals, Vitamin Mineral Max Minerals Plus in your drinks, Ageless Life Support Glycemics. If you want to rev up your brain, we've got Cognition Plus. We've got Brain Power DHEA from algae-based for docosahexaenoic acid. We have phospholipids to rebuild your neuron myelin sheath. We have neurotransmitter modulators such as Samethyl, BH4 biopterin, which is called Pteridine now. We have changed the name a bit. Got a different supplier. And nutraceuticals that supply the TRAX form of amino acid, chelates, and minerals. So they bypass all the normal transport mechanisms, and you're not getting forms of minerals that are mined from 50-million-year-old dinosaur bones or ferns from 100 million years ago that have tons of heavy metals, which unfortunately a lot of other companies provide that, or they don't have the full range of trace elements as well. Then you want to rev up your ability to heal collagen. Collagen Max triples the rate of the proline transhydroxylase enzyme. Tendon mender makes the tenocytes epigenetically switch back to normal type 1 collagen, which is going to be the collagen in your bones, your teeth, the enamel, the collagen that makes up the connective tissues around your tendon sheaths and your carpal tunnel, so it can reverse carpal tunnel syndrome swelling. Tendon mender joint performance, which is its twin to help reform the cartilage, along with, of course, mountain red velvet. And I tell people, take at least one of your 3 mountain red velvet capsules and put it under your tongue, hold it for 10, because you're going to absorb some of the delicate molecules more easily directly under your tongue and then swallow. CoQ10, we have the only CoQ10 in the world that is non-crystallizing, non-polymerizing. CoQ10 Supreme. Ubiquinol is the most powerful ubiquinol form as well. Our CoQ10 Supreme is head-to-head study with the most powerful other strain, and I'm not going to mention the name of it. Ours, and compared to the top, we call medical grade, not just the ones you can buy over the internet, is 8 to 12 times more absorbed than any other form of CoQ10. Then when we look at things like your defense wipes, this has been proven with research over 40 years to kill all capsulated viruses and pathogenic bacteria. Diabetoline, we have people asking all the time for diabetes. I had a recent request this morning from Australia. You want to reverse diabetes, take leptin metabolic, 1 to 2 capsules twice a day, not the low dosage I recommend, because once you get things moving. Take LipoFlush, which is conjugated linoleic acid, 2 soft gels twice a day. Diabetoline, 2 capsules twice a day, and Biotin Plus, 1 capsule twice a day. And of course, take Minerals Plus and Vitamineral Max. And once you start correcting the actual fatty acid oxidation, which will improve with CoQ10 and IBS care, which is the propionyl L-carnitine, because fatty acid metabolism in your muscles is with the abnormal crosstalk from your fatty tissues that produce adiponectin and leptin. That's the reason why you've got diabetes or obesity. And we know how to metabolically reverse it and to monitor your blood insulin, not just blood sugar levels, and your abnormal organic acids indicating abnormal fatty acid metabolism or abnormal sugar metabolism in your muscles. So we can actually monitor that. So this is not just airy-fairy. Your doctor may have no clue whatsoever we're talking about. I can train them if they're trainable. If they'll call, I'll explain it, and I'll explain what test it is so they can actually learn this. They don't need to take a course. Just call me. Digestes. You want to restore stomach acid. We have these stupid proton pump inhibitors like the purple pill. They keep on advertising with a guy with a kind of a, I call it a kind of Hackney accent, which I find really irritating, to abuse people that are smart people by saying because they have this accent they're going to be stupid enough to take purple pills. No, they're probably smart enough to realize you don't take a pile of purple pills and then swallow hot peppers. What you do is restore stomach acid. You heal the stomach lining with GastroHeal, which is zinc carnosine, and you restore stomach digestive enzymes, and you kill off the abnormal bacteria, which are like Helicobacter pylori and fungi that are chewing away at your gut lining. Or if you've got biogastritis, because you get abnormal bile reflux into your lower part of your stomach, that's why your stomach is on fire, not because of stomach acid, because of bile. But unless a doctor scopes your stomach, they have no clue what's going on there. Just a simple x-ray won't tell you. So if you give me your history, I'll tell you what test your doctor's supposed to do. We've got Flash Away. Stop hot flashes, which is also hormone synergy, same product, different name. Will prevent male hormone from being converted to female in your fatty tissues and female hormone being converted to male. So fantastic for stopping hot flashes and also keeping the sexes their own sex. We have, of course, full vitamin K2, which we use along with Power C Plus to turn off not only cancer, but also to stop cytokine storms or everything from Ebola to Rocky Mountain spotted fever and the avian or swine flu. We've got Gamma E Plus, the very best form of gamma tocopherols with tocotrienols with all the different gammas, alpha, beta, delta. And what happens is it repairs the ion channels to make sure that your body is managing calcium ion activity in your body, because it's like a axe-wielding calcium ion is allowed temporarily into the cells and then it's kicked back out again through the properly operating ion channels. And if they're just damaged by calcium ion channel blockers like Calan or these other drugs, we had one some years ago called Plendil for plenty of edema, because that's what it would do, is blow you up. These things are dangerous. They'll shrink your brain, lower your IQ, and damage your ion channels and can cause cardiac arrhythmias. Gastrozyme, the best digestive enzymes, that even includes lactose blockers, the glutenase to get rid of gluten, and of course we have the lactose blocker and the carbo blocker. Lactose blocker is the first neutral pH lactose blocker in the world. So if you've got irritable bowel syndrome or colitis, you need to be on lactose blocker because you think, well, I don't drink milk. It's in everything. There's lactose hiding in little tiny dosages, and if you've got colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, or any form of GI tract problem, you need to be on lactose blocker. Glycemics, of course, vanilla and chocolate, life support for detox. The glycemics is particularly good for weight loss and for diabetes. The Immunomax powder and immune capsules, the immunoglobulins, now we've upgraded the product. It's coming from colostrum. It includes some additional new molecules not present, including transfer factor and lactalbumin, that were not present in the previous versions, so we've upgraded it. Much more powerful now. Inflamax to stop inflammation in your tissues or joints. Nothing like it. Joint performance, we mentioned earlier. The leptin metabolic, this is a miracle molecule. It reverses the diabetic insulin resistance, the elevated cytokine levels in inflammatory joints. Combining it with LipoFlush, which is conjugated linoleic acid, and our diabetoline biotin plus and minerals plus, and of course we have chromium cruciferate, which is the John Hopkins version. We have, of course, the life support, which is the best detox, along with BioLVR and a detox with xenoestrogen detox for taking out chemicals. Living probiotic, we have the Ruzel 6 strain and the Living Probiotic Ultra, the most powerful probiotic on the planet. And believe it or not, if you don't have probiotics in your gut that are operating properly, you can't even, a stem cell transplant doesn't even work. We got magnesium glycinate, the best form of magnesium to activate your mitochondria and raise total body levels. Magnesium taurate for your heart and nervous system, and magnesium potassium citrate for electrolytes. We have melatonin time release, the very best form of melatonin, men's max, to release male hormone from the binding globulin. We have, of course, mitothyroid, thyroid, adrenal, and hypothalamus. Micelle D3 for D3 and Myco D2. That's our oncomycin to fight cancer as well. It's in our cancer protocol. Neovasc to lower triglycerides. Neurogen to stimulate nerve fibers in your brain and to regenerate your peripheral nervous system. And, of course, Nutriodine, the most powerful antipathogenic we have against Ebola and anything else. So, literally, there is no health condition that we can't attack with the right combination of diet, lifestyle, nutraceuticals, and changes in behavior. Don't eat garbage. Don't drink toxic water. Don't eat things that you're allergic to or genetically modified. Do realize that there are things you can do to take control of your life. You don't have to go down the pathways of your uncles or your brothers or your parents if you eat the wrong foods. We'll be back tomorrow with another amazing show, and it's open lines every day except Friday, first hour.